It was a calm Sunday afternoon in Springfield, Missouri. Sunlight streamed in through the tall living room windows, spilling a warm golden glow across the polished wooden floors. I had just returned from the farmer's market, my wicker basket filled with crisp apples, ripe tomatoes, and a small jar of golden local honey. My name is Claire Thompson, 28 years old, a high school art teacher. I'd moved back into my childhood home for a few months while my apartment underwent renovations. Being here again brought a rush of memories, some sweet, others tinged with sorrow. The house wasn't empty. My Uncle David, my late father's younger brother, was staying here for the time being. At 52, he was a quiet man, the kind who seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories in his eyes. The past year had been brutal for him. He'd lost his job in Denver, and shortly after, his wife had filed for divorce. My mother, ever compassionate, had invited him to stay until he could get back on his feet. That afternoon, when I stepped inside with my basket, the air felt unusually still. Mom had gone to volunteer at the library, and the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway was the loudest sound in the house. I headed toward the kitchen, humming softly to myself as I set the apples in a ceramic bowl. That's when I noticed it. Uncle David's bedroom door slightly ajar. The curtain inside swayed gently from the summer breeze drifting in through a half-open window. I paused, not intending to pry, but because I heard something faint. At first I thought it was a soft groan, the kind that might come from someone in pain. A ripple of concern went through me. Was he hurt? I walked quietly toward the door and leaned in for a look. He was lying on the bed, still in his clothes, shoes kicked off, clearly asleep. But that wasn't what caught my breath. It was the tear tracks glistening on his cheeks. In one hand, he held a crumpled old photograph, its edges frayed and nearly torn. Froze. In all the years I'd known him, I'd never seen him cry. Something in the way his fingers curled so tightly around that picture made my chest ache. Moving slowly, I stepped inside. On the nightstand sat an empty coffee mug and a small, leather-bound notebook. The photograph in his hand was of my father and him, decades younger, standing in front of their childhood home, both wearing matching baseball caps. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't about the divorce. This was about my dad. Uncle David had been the pillar during the funeral years ago, handling arrangements, comforting Mom and me, and never once letting his own emotions show. Maybe now, in this quiet moment, he was finally allowing himself to feel it. I turned to leave, but before I could slip away, his eyes flickered open. "Claire," he murmured, his voice rough, as though the tears had followed him even into his dreams. I froze, caught like a child in the middle of a secret. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I thought you might be in pain." He pushed himself upright, rubbing a hand over his face. "No, it's fine," he said softly. "I guess I was dreaming about your dad." I stepped a little closer, unsure if I was crossing into something too personal. "You miss him," I said quietly. A short, bitter laugh escaped him. "Every day. But today, it hit harder. I caught an old baseball game on TV this morning, the kind we used to watch together. Next thing I knew, I was here with this picture, and all those years just caught up with me. We ended up talking for hours. He shared stories about my dad I'd never heard before. How they'd once tried to build a treehouse and accidentally chose a branch too weak to hold them. How my dad had walked 10 miles one afternoon just to bring David the lunch he'd forgotten in middle school. The heaviness in the room slowly shifted, becoming something warmer. Connection. Healing. By the time Mom returned, Uncle David was in the kitchen with me, slicing apples for pie. The sound of our laughter made her stop in the doorway and smile. That night, lying in bed, I realized something that stayed with me. The people we believe to be unshakable are sometimes the ones quietly breaking. And all it takes is one gentle moment, one honest conversation, to help them breathe again. In the days that followed, something in Uncle David changed. He seemed lighter. He began applying for jobs, took evening walks, and now and then I'd find him in the living room, watching a baseball game with a faint smile, as if he could still hear my dad's voice beside him. I never forgot that Sunday afternoon. Not because I found him sleeping, but because for the first time I truly saw him. All of him. The grief, the love, and the quiet resilience that had always been there.